Hi, I'm Paul Stringfellow, and welcome to Tech Takeaways. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Jason Fitzgerald. Hi, Jason.
Hello. You okay?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yeah,
good.
I was hoping for a little bit more than
good.
hello.
You know, all week it feels like I've spent my week saying I can't believe it's Tuesday, and then I can't believe and it's Thursday already. I can't believe it.
I know. Well, I can't because I was a little bit disappointed it wasn't Friday, but there you go. So sadly, it's only a Thursday we're recording on. But anyway, you're not here for what day of the week this is because you'll be watching this on a Tuesday because that's when Tech Takeaways comes out. But yeah, amazingly, we're recording on a Thursday. We can actually handle recording on a different day of the week to the day it goes out. Get us, aren't we smart? So on this week's episode, we're revisiting a topic that we talked about before around pen testing, and what we want to have a look at. And this was Jason's idea, so you can blame him for this episode. Was the difference between pen testing and kind of automated continuous pen testing?
Yep.
I think is probably a fair description. So
that's right.
So. Well, maybe to intro the topic, Jason, give us a little bit of an idea of when we talk about automated pen testing. What are we talking about?
Okay, so to talk about automated pen testing, we need to probably cover pen testing first. What is a pen test and what do we mean by it? So when we talk pen test, we're talking penetration testing. Can we get into someone's network externally? So knowing what we know, can we access that network? And the reason why we do that is that's what attackers do. So pen testing is part of measuring how your defenses against a cyber attack. So there'll be certain scans that are run to gather information about your network externally. And then using the information gleaned from those scans, there'll be certain tests done against the network to say, if I was an attacker, can I get into this network? So essentially that's what pen testing is. Most companies will do it once a year.
Yeah.
And why do they do it once a year? One, for insurance purposes. A lot of insurers now are asking companies to prove that they've had a pen test, and they'll ask for the date of the pen test. They'll provide the date of the pen test, and then the pen test is almost like a tick box exercise. Yes, we've done a pen test, but it was some time ago kind of thing. But it satisfies the insurance company to be able to get some cover with that. The reason why continuous security pen testing is important is because it's not a point in time single pen test like the previous example there. So when we're talking about continuous pen testing, what we're talking about is January, we do a pen test. We do a pen test in February, March, April, May, once a month as we go. What does that give us? Well, then that gives us correlation between the results the previous month and a month or before that and a current month. So when we're talking security, that's really important because we can see where we were and we can see what trajectory we're on of improvement if there is a plan of improving security.
Yeah. So that feels like, it actually feels like there's maybe an argument for a bit of both as well, but maybe we can come back to that. Yeah. But in terms of that kind of continual assessment of your security posture, that sounds like a really sensible thing to do. So this is where I'm in January, this is where I'm in February, and we can kind of see the difference and we can see kind of our trajectory of improvements, which is ideally what you want to be able to see.
Yeah.
So while that sounds like a logical, smart thing to do, that's probably not something that everybody does. So is there reasons that people don't do that?
Yeah, there is. Yeah. Because some people are just satisfied with, I've done a pen test and I've ticked the box for insurance and I don't need to worry about it. So continuous evaluation of your security really suits companies that have an agenda of, we want to improve our security. The way I view it is, if it's not measured, it doesn't get done. And that automated continuous pen testing really supports that, because you can say, right, okay, we've got certain vulnerabilities live in the network today. Over the next 5 weeks, we're going to improve them. And then the next time when that security evaluation runs, we're going to be able to measure whether the efforts to improve that security resulted in an overall improvement in security or not. When we look at certain large data breaches over the years, I'm going to pick, was it Equifax? Those guys. So the vulnerability around the Apache Struts, I want to say, the Apache engine, a pen test would have picked that up.
Yeah.
Okay, so that system wasn't patched, known vulnerabilities in it. If that was assessed today, you'd know about it. You can patch it, you can prove it, and then when you assess it next time, you know that the work has been done and completed satisfactorily to close down that vulnerability.
So is there a different, because it feels like there's almost a little bit of an amalgamation of things here with this kind of continuous assessment, continuous pen testing. Yeah. So, because actually vulnerability management, so think about somebody like a Qualys, those guys have been around for a long time, and what their technology traditionally has done, and I'm not saying, obviously Qualys is kind of does additional things now as well, but traditionally what that's done is looked at the devices across your network, identified where there's potential vulnerabilities, tied that to CVEs and said, you need to go and apply a patch because a patch exists for this, or, you're vulnerable to this kind of thing. And so that sounds like there's an element of that in kind of a continuous assessment. Is there, but you're getting additional stuff as well. So it's not just looking at, it's not doing patch vulnerabilities. It's also looking at the potential. Is it looking at the potential of exploiting them as well?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So the pen testing will look at every avenue into the network. So, for example, the way that it works, so an attacker or a pen tester, a human pen tester would say, okay, I'm going to scan the network and I'm going to work out what's on the network. And based on what I find, I'm then going to take certain approaches to get in. So let's say, for example, we find a web server exposed to the internet. Okay, what ciphers is that running? Are they weak ciphers? Could I potentially break the ciphers? Is it accepting unlimited connections, or is it throttled somehow? If it's accepting unlimited connections, could I DDoS it? Could I bring the server down? That's the kind of approach. And a lot of that manual work can be automated, because if what we're trying to do is build up an understanding of the network, the ciphers used, the servers exposed, an automated system can do that and give exactly the same information. Okay, what's a human pen tester going to do with that? Well, they're going to be obviously a bit more creative, because the automated pen test is going to go through test 1, test 2, test 3, all the way down to, it'll run thousands of tests. But the human pen tester would look at it and say, but that's the one that I'm going to use to get in.
Yeah.
Because they can identify it and say, based on my experience, based on my knowledge, that's what I'm going to go after. And it's that creativity that you would get with a human-led pen test, as opposed to an automated pen test. So, whenever we talk about kind of security tools, we're always talking about for the security personnel that are trying to, make things more secure within your infrastructure. Are we arming them with the correct tools and information? Are they getting that on a regular basis, or are they not getting it at all? That's where the automated pen testing comes in, to say you're getting this information, once a month, to say, here we go, this is your current state of play today. You can now use that to understand your risks better. You can use that to understand your work plan a little bit better over the next few weeks. But a human-led pen test is always going to be a bit more creative. If we look at if we strictly speak, penetration testing is, can I get into the network? Yeah. What's the easiest way to get into any network is get someone's user account. Okay, so there's a lot of MFA now. If you're not turned on MFA, go and turn it on. But there's a lot of MFA, and users can be manipulated. Social engineering, we call it social engineering, phoning up a user, hello, I'm from Microsoft, or I'm from insert name here, whatever, or, I'm from the HR department. I need you to accept an MFA code on your phone. It's coming through now. An automated pen test isn't going to do that, but a human pen tester might, and say, I'm going to use an element of social engineering to manipulate the individual, the human being at the end of that keyboard. That's a valid method into the network.
So it sounds like, there's definitely a market for both of these things, and just kind of listening to what you're talking about, it sounds like potentially once or twice a year, you might get a human-led pen test where you might give them carte blanche to do that kind of creativity. Because I think there's a big part of, as an organization, if you're concerned about that kind of thing, you need to tell your pen tester that, hey, feel free to do these kind of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, whenever you're working with a pen tester, they'll generally sit down with you and say, are there any areas in particular you want me to focus on? And when it comes to kind of social engineering and users, it's all around user education, training, and process. So if a user has been not being told to not pass their MFA codes to anyone, then potentially they could pass those codes on to anyone. So if the policy is you don't give your MFA codes to anyone, or you don't take any guidance from anyone telling you to do anything with your MFA codes, then that user is educated to know not to do that, and so that social engineering risk is lower.
And I know recently actually you've been working with a handful of customers around. Offering actually kind of a free because we're just trying out some new tools, aren't we? That do automated pen testing. And part of the reason that we're doing that is actually this conversation that we're having now. That we've kind of looked at where is the potential vulnerabilities and that idea. We have lots of people we work with who are very strong in making sure they have pen tests done on a regular basis. So once or twice a year, they make sure they're doing. They're not normally just doing it to tick a box. They're doing it because they are absolutely
constructively.
But I think we've looked at this and seen actually there's in some instances that only finding these kind of things once or twice a year leaves you vulnerable to other things. So is there anything, any tips that you'd give just from, I know you haven't done tons of these so far, but is there any tips you'd kind of give in terms of what you have seen, of how you could get value out of a kind of continuous vulnerability assessment?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. We've been working with a number of customers, recently to run some automated pen testing. Why did we pick those customers? Because they have got a strategy of we need to improve our security. So we've taken the approach of if it doesn't get measured, it doesn't get done. Let's look at your posture today. Let's work out where your risks lie. Let's do a schedule of work over the next few weeks to improve that. And then let's ensure that it is done. It's stay on top of it. Take a look at those reports as they come out. The pen testing that we're doing isn't just external, it's within the network as well. So we can put a sensor within the network and we can scan any network device that's on that network. So when we look at network devices, the first thing that crops to mind is endpoints, people's PCs and servers. But a network comprises of, maybe CCTV cameras, printers, or network peripherals. Have they been patched? Are they vulnerable? Because, printers, run web servers. Are those web servers vulnerable? Do we know about that? Is that a risk that we need to take into account? So it's about that really. Know where your risks lie and have a plan to address them.
Yeah, and I think that's because obviously we just did some work with somebody recently where they were looking at that, and one of the big drivers was actually their IoT network. So they had a lot of operational tech running manufacturing equipment, and actually whatever they looked at needed to find ways of ensuring that those devices were, whether they were patched or not, but at least they were secured so that they couldn't be a vulnerability in themselves. So it's an interesting space.
That's right, yeah.
So, well, I think it's been great. I think, the takeaway for me from kind of listening to what you've said is, I think absolutely a place for both. So, that kind of creative human kind of pen testing, but definitely also a place for kind of continual assessment, understanding where vulnerabilities lie, that continual almost testing of your attack surface to say, hey, do we know there's a thing over here that maybe we've not looked at before? Yeah, and actually, just a quick question, actually, in terms of these kind of continual tests, can you do these on both public-facing and internal networks?
Absolutely, yeah. When we set up the test, we do a discovery, we capture all of the public IPs, domain names, whether you want to do just external or internal. If it's internal, we capture all the IP addresses that you want to scan or the entire network. We deploy a sensor into the network, and then that will run continuously based on the schedule. So we would just schedule it in. We send out an executive report, so non-technical report, to highlight where the risk areas lie, and then we include that with a full technical evaluation report as well. So that is some reading, I can tell you. That's quite long, but it will give recommendations on what was found, how to fix it, why to fix it, what the risk is, the severity of the risk as well. So absolutely worth doing. if anyone watching wants to do that, get in touch with us. We've got a promotion on at the moment to be able to run that. In some cases, free of charge. So if that is something that you want to work on, get in touch and we can engage that way.
Yeah, but don't tell Wayne we said free of charge. Just don't mention it to him. It's you know what salespeople are like. So Jake, that's been great. I think it's great insight there. And absolutely, I think value in both of those. So if that's an area of interest, give us a shout and we'll be happy to chat through it with you. So, but Jace, thanks. Great insight as always.
Yeah,
and if you've enjoyed this show, and again, why wouldn't you? Then we'd love to hear your comments. What you do around kind of pen testing and automated pen testing, what your views are, and if you've got ideas for shows and things you'd like us to cover in the future, then do leave them in the comments below. To make sure you catch all future episodes of Tech Takeaways, then do subscribe. You can subscribe here on the subscribe button on YouTube or in wherever you get your podcast from usually. So we're there in all good homes of podcasts, and as I say most weeks, and probably some bad ones as well. So until next time, thanks for watching Tech Takeaways.